Welcome everyone, Dr. Thor here. Get ready for Gnosis. Well, I wanted to revisit a little bit about this extraterrestrial contact and people who claim they have contact. Some who have had contact for 60 years, like Billy Meyer and others. Now, what are we to make of all this? How should we approach this? I recently spoke with Samuel Chong, the Theoumba prophecy kind of a spokesman. He's been out there letting people know about this book for many years. And he's a sincere person, and maybe I was a little bit too snide in my other comments after speaking with him. He is a sincere person, but I still, he has a lot of gaps in his personal knowledge, even though he's not as young as I thought he was. But he certainly is a serious person. He's looking for answers. He does do his research to a degree. But there are confusion areas that, like most people, if you work with some other people that have a vaster knowledge than you, oftentimes they can steer you in the right direction, even if you don't want to necessarily believe what they tell you. So, as I say with all these things, I don't want to debate whether it happened or not. This happens in so many things that people see things. People who take ayahuasca and all these mind altering drugs. Was that a real experience? Did that happen? Now, we know that this is happening in their mind. Does that mean it's real? So we just don't know. We just don't know with any of it. But I'm not sure I really care. But it does seem, all these cases are pretty suspicious. And certainly the prophecy book is suspicious because this guy needed money, didn't have much success in life. And it seems to me that this was something that he was trying to make money from. And he did put out good information in it in terms of, but it's the same old thing. Save the planet, love each other, don't be materialistic. This is not new, and this is not going to save the planet if we don't have ways of doing that. So this is what I run into all the time, and I can't think of a single ET contact, extraterrestrial contactee. And remember, extraterrestrials are physical entities from other planets. They're not dimensional, they're not spirits, they don't come out of a Coke bottle. This is not what they are. So we have to define it, or we get into a land of make-believe that never ends. The other thing is, what is the value of it if we have something? So, the bottom line is we have to not spend our time, this doesn't make sense, they didn't have toilets, which I kind of mentioned. I don't remember him saying that. He talked about everything else, including kitchens, but does that matter? Not really. None of it really matters. What did you bring back? What information do you have? What can you have of a practical nature so you can do things? Now, if you don't know that you should take care of your planet, that you shouldn't drink battery fluid, that you shouldn't throw trash in the ocean, well, you're a hopeless cause anyway. This is what they say about the so-called holy books. That mankind would never know not to rape, murder, and torture if the books didn't say so. Well, these are intergalactic ways of thinking that I don't know of any culture that thinks any different. And that goes with all cultures, even on planet Earth. Everybody doesn't believe in robbing and raping and stealing, at least within their own tribe. Now, of course, there are some tribes that do this, that actually have no problem stealing and cheating others because they're not in your tribe. This is classic with several groups in the United States. The Travelers, and I can't think of their name right now, but they have little psychic stores everywhere. So these different groups don't steal from each other, and it's quite a penalty if you do. So the bottom line is, what are we talking about here to judge information? So we can go back, and I'm going to quickly go through. So anytime you get anybody making claims to you, they have to prove it to you. If someone wants to give you information, it better have value. I mean, we've basically, particularly with religions, for over 4,000 years now, been listening to their philosophy, which makes nothing change. There's nothing in there. If you think that nicey words is going to carry you in terrible times, or you're going to be able to get ahead in life by thinking nicey thoughts, it doesn't work like that. So all spirituality generally doesn't cover anybody, carry anybody in difficult times. The bottom line is people fall back on their primitive instincts or whatever goes on. We have to understand this as well. Nice words, nice thoughts, and as long as everything is hunky-dory, well, maybe you can keep that. But when we look at religions and everything else, which is one of my studies recently with Jim and Tammy Baker, I'm still trying to find organizations that try to work together. These people had problems, they did amazing things, they did some abuses, and what did the Christian community do to them? They jumped on them. They beat them, they tortured them, they ripped them apart. They didn't help them as fellow Christians. As a matter of fact, they robbed and raped them, almost literally, to take their ministry away that this person had built up for what could be considered, to some extent in this day and age, it's kind of a minor abuse. When you have people like all the other ministers out there who are worth hundreds of millions of dollars. Pat Robertson, who died recently, was worth $100 million. And they said that poor little Jim and Tammy took a few million that used for personal purposes, who raised hundreds of millions. But that's another issue we'll go into another. But that's what you got to look at. What is coming from people of a practical nature? So I don't care what these extraterrestrials tell you. How are they going to help your life? Are they going to cure you? Are they going to give methods of curing you? Are they going to tell you how to use things? Now, I only know of one instance, apparently, where there was an extraterrestrial contact, I believe in Spain. I'm trying to find this information again, that gave the contactees some sort of salve that cured cancer. And apparently they analyzed this and nobody could make heads or tails of it. And that's the other problem. If you're going to be a low-level scientist and try and figure out what super advanced people are doing, you're going to have problems. The technology that I got from extraterrestrial contacts were simple products that worked, that almost anybody can make, with a few little secrets to activate them. So you're talking about images, different gold and silver that trigger out sonic waves that stop the grays, and they can't stand it. Very simple, very effective. And of course, when this is shown to the average buffoonish, particularly people like Louis Theroux, Mr. Goofball guy, and his perverted friends, of course, wouldn't understand it. This looks like a little desk. This looks like a bike helmet. I mean, this is the kind of ignorant stuff you get from the ignorant masses. The bottom line is they've worked and they were proven to work. Now, the bottom line is that what are they giving you? What are you getting from it? Now, they don't necessarily have to give you a machine or something, which probably wouldn't work well, or it couldn't. Where do you plug it in? It's got Martian plug on it. The Martian plugs don't work in the USA. So the whole idea is that how are you going to get something that works? So this is one of the problems with sharing technologies as well. And of course, they haven't bothered to also give you any kind of credible pictures. If you're working with you, I don't see what the problem is of giving somebody credible pictures. You get a lot of nonsense from these contactees, and if they're actually getting this information from the ETs, well, we have a serious problem. It looks like we have a really retarded group of ETs that seem to come to this planet. They pick the stupidest, worthless people on the planet in general. But that may not be the entire truth, as I've said before. And I don't want to drag this on too much. I want to come to a fair conclusion here probably in 30 minutes or so. So what are they telling you? So I'm not going to go through the story. Oh, gee, it sounds good. In that particular prophecy book, they talked about many things and answered a bunch of questions. They didn't want to give him physical things. They didn't want to give him skills because it was a waste of time if they give him something physical because they'll just argue about it. Well, how convenient is that? And of course, he had abilities that he took away from him. He could, levitate, and they took that away from him. Everything they took away from him means I don't think he ever had it. If it did, what's the point of it? So they didn't want anything there to actually assist this person in doing anything. So to tell you that you shouldn't be materialistic, well, that's been written for thousands of years. That you shouldn't pollute your planet, well, that's been written for thousands of years. And all of the abduction stories, particularly in the late 80s and into the 90s, all had the same rap. They would be taken onto planes. They would show the Earth being destroyed by pollution and wars. And you don't do it. Do something about it, Marvin. You're working at Walmart. Save a couple of 2 pennies every day. And put that in a fund. And in 10 million years, you have enough money to stop something. So this is the kind of things that we run into of the idiot reality. Now, if extraterrestrials are that stupid, well, they have no value whatsoever, but they don't give people anything. They don't even give you spiritual techniques or something to say or some little trick or maybe a sigil design that empowers something. Nothing. Maybe a little bit of low level but advanced science for free energy or for healing. Nope. Now, the prime example of this is that Billy Myers, like so many of these other people out there, well, he's written hundreds of pages of his dribble that means absolutely nothing. I mean, I vomited through enough of his stuff that it's vacuous, and he likes to repeat regular science to think that, well, they told me this and we can verify it. The bottom line is that really the information you get from ET should not be verifiable. It should be different and unusual. Not to say that, gee, this is in basic science. And Billy Myers was known at the local bookstore to read absolutely voraciously and get information on everything. This has been checked into. So what he had to say. Now, what did we get from him? Any techniques? Philosophy again, and what's convenient is a lot of these people say religion is bad, so they can't blame it. And Billy Myers said the same thing. Well, isn't that a shocker? So the whole idea is, this is the same old garbage that you get from everybody and has no meaning whatsoever. And to steer away from religion because most people are not going to buy into it. So if you say if these people are religion or believe in a religion, you're going to probably lose people right away because they're going to just say that you're just involved in some religion and this is a way of pushing it. But in his over 60 years now of being abducted, and he's still alive, he's in his early 80s or middle 80s by now, I would think, he's absolutely produced nothing but a bunch of goofball pictures. Now, the latest one I saw is he got a little ray gun that looks like it's right out of Star Trek, and he shows a hole that it made through a tree, which only could be done by a ray gun, apparently, but he never shows it in action. He doesn't show it happening. He doesn't show it. So he shows a gun that looks like something made right out of Hollywood. Not impressed, Billy Boy. Let's see it in action. And he waves it around, the little midget one-armed freak that he is, like this is something special. So, and he's been notorious for building little models and other things there to make these things. But again, we're not seeing anything. It's amazing that his extraterrestrials that he contacts, the Polludians, had no problem giving him ray guns, but they don't want to have pictures taken. Like, what would that be the problem of that? I don't quite understand that. Whatever they wanted in the galaxy, if pictures go out, they're going to be arrested. So the whole idea, what is all that nonsense? So he has produced absolutely nothing, and if you can read through his gobbledygook, you're going to find nothing. His website is full of all of his books, which most of them are in the horrific language of German, which doesn't explain anything well. Anybody that knows languages understand that pretty much all European languages are very primitive to explain anything. They have approximately 3,000 words in their vocabulary, while English has 500,000 to 1 million easily with words added every day. So if you want to explain things, you're going to have to do it in the language of basically the planet. Everything, the international language in general is English, whether you're a pilot, a ship captain, science, doctors, etc. Bottom line, there's a reason for that so people can communicate, and nothing beats English for explaining things. So the whole idea is that it's all in his gobbledygook. Most of it hasn't been translated, so I don't know where all his money is going. But he's obviously a dupe of the German Arabs, and they do what he does what they tell him. Living in that butthole country of Switzerland, as a farmer in the country. So we have all these problems here. Produced nothing. As I said, the only thing on his website recently is that his handler, and I forget what his name is, some American guy, says that you should be taking brown kelp tablets. And this is a miracle healer. Now, I took these tablets and they did absolutely nothing. Now, kelp, seaweed, is high in micronutrients, even though the ocean is a sewer. I wouldn't take these things for long periods of time. But that's all we ever got out of him in 60 years. Case closed. Let's talk about Ted Owens, the PK man. He produced absolutely nothing, wrote a couple of little books, talked about stuff. He left basically a little affirmation. I don't know what you call it. It's an affirmation. It's about 3 or 4 paragraphs that are absolutely nothing of value in there whatsoever. You could say, I love parrots every day, and that means I'm going to be rich, and it would be the same type of situation. Now, he was never able to figure out anything. He was an alcoholic and died of alcoholism, liver disease, and of course, his extraterrestrial buddies couldn't figure out how to stop him from drinking or heal his liver. Didn't happen. That whole full story is really not known, and a lot of the details are not known because the book written on him by Jeffrey No Proof Mishlove is really a piece of garbage that says nothing and comes to no conclusions. While he has a lot more information apparently, but that won't left out. So totally worthless, but he never brought back anything. He couldn't figure out how to win at horses. He couldn't figure out how to make a slot machine pay off. All he could do was try and blow up the world with weather. It's kind of the Blofeld. We could make a whole new Bond film with Ted Owens as the Storm Man. He brings storms. He's going to kill people. So, and all of that, and then he tried to mess with sports teams and send them bad energy, and apparently these teams did have a little bad luck after he jinxed them. But almost anybody can do that. But he was unable to anyway figure out how to make a few bucks, which he needed from his superpowers. And of course, you would think even back then that he could make money from causing rain. I mean, this did happen in the 1920s and other places where people paid rainmakers quite a good sum to make rain. You think he would have been able to figure out that somewhere in the world, but was unable to do it. So he's unable to do anything. He left a bunch of nothing. He did leave a family and everything else we don't hear from. There was some talk that initially he was doing some healings. And didn't seem to continue with that. You think he could have, he lived on, I guess, donations, and you think he could have done more healings and attracted a bigger crowd because everybody is sick even back then. There does seem to be an oddness of UFO sightings around his house at his time of death and other things, but I'm not really sure that's true. Where did that come from? Some neighbor? Some drunk guy who's, I was there drunk out of my mind with Teddy Boy, and I saw this little light in the sky.
Those are headlights from down the street.
No, I'm telling you, UFOs.
No, they're headlights.
So the whole idea is that we just don't know. So absolutely nothing. Let's go over to another nut job. Whitley Strieber. How many people remember Whitley Strieber? He was the guy with Communion. He sold lots of books. He was a science fiction writer. And for years he said, I don't know who these creatures are. Who knows? They could be elves from underneath in the cellar. Of course, you know nothing. This guy's a babbling boob who sees things flying through his house every 10 minutes and talks to his dead wife constantly. Whitley Strieber is a complete nutjob. I don't believe anything he says, and he doesn't know how to interpret anything. What did he bring? Any proof? Nothing again. So, Ted Owens had nothing, brought back nothing, and apparently, again, these extraterrestrials who can travel interdimensionally couldn't drop a bar of gold in his house. Oh, we can't do that. We don't know how to do that. Oh. We only have lead. So he couldn't do that neither. So, I mean, there's absolutely nothing they help with. They don't cure, they don't help, they don't do anything else, but they're everywhere. And, of course, Ted Owens was speaking to crickets, praying mantis beings, coming off the fruit trees. So the whole idea is that we have all these things, and that, of course, doesn't make sense either. So you got to really worry about whether this guy is just a screaming nut job. And the same thing with Whitley Strieber. As he said, for years he denied they were extraterrestrials. I sold my house in upper state New York so I could have barbecues in Texas. That's what he first said. Now he's saying I couldn't afford the house. Well, that's not what you said before, Whitley, baby, because I've been around long enough and track you people. Hey, I'm going to buy to Texas and barbecue. You can't do that in upstate New York. You can't get that good steaks there. So the whole idea is that these are all the things that they say. So we go on and on. Now we go into the Thubia prophecies. And what does this guy do? Absolutely nothing. There's no proof whatsoever. He has no information. Everything that could possibly happen doesn't happen. He does do out and do lectures and stuff, which of course he's paid for to push his book and everything else. And I never remember talk about him years ago, but maybe I just missed it. He's living off of, from what I was told by somebody on YouTube, that he was living off of an Australian retirement check. So, and of course, your money goes a long way in Vietnam. So he's living in Vietnam, and he was a Frenchman, which is was a French colony, and living on that island, on one of the small Vietnam islands. I'm not sure if people understand. Vietnam has a whole bunch of islands. They're apparently able to live there cheaply, and I'm assuming he was living there. I mean, you can see his house if you go to Samuel Chong's website. And you can see the house he lived in, which seemed like a fairly decent house, and there seems to be a whole bunch of stuff for kids. I don't know if he had kids or he was living with other people or what was going on, but certainly he had little or no money. He sold the rights to his book to someone else as well because he needed money. And he was able to get Samuel Chong to go to China and get it published so he could make more money. And so I'm not... so he established a friendship with him. I don't know how real any of that was. And of course, we get the same thing in this area. And I don't know how many people say this, but with this particular person, it's Mikhail, he stated he had secrets he couldn't tell us. Yeah, we need more of that, don't we? We need more secrets kept to us by actual contactees, the government, and everything, because we can't take it. We're just stupid. So this again reeks of fraud. Nothing practical, nothing to do anything, not even the slightest thing, not even a secret word. So the whole idea is nothing is there presented by any of these cases and we could go on and on through all these cases. And there doesn't even seem to be any unusual information. I believe in the abduction of Betty Hill and her husband, that they were showed a star map that had stars on it that we were unfamiliar with. Now that sounds interesting and real to me. Let's find stuff that we don't know. When you go out and reaffirm stuff that we know, like Billy Myers does, and so does the prophecy book here, I'm very suspicious of that. I want to know something that I don't know, which you can possibly track. So this is the problem. So if anybody tells you they have contact and these are divine type beings, in what manner? We have plenty of great books out there. Plenty. We probably have hundreds of thousands of holy books, and they basically all say the same thing. We don't need somebody to tell us to stop being material, love each other, stop polluting the planet. We've been told this for hundreds of years, and how do you do it? So they decided to take this prophecy boy, and they empowered him with what? Nothing. He had no money whatsoever. He lived from hand to mouth on a tiny little retirement check from the Australian government on an island where you could do virtually nothing, and there's nothing in the book that tells us how to do anything. So they didn't empower him whatsoever. Now, these are either the stupidest, retarded ETs, as with all the other cases, or they are deceiver and demonic. And I tend to believe that. If these are real, they are so low level and stupid that they have absolutely no use for any of us. At the very least, they can provide for these people. Maybe tell them where to find a box of money. Maybe tell them where there's gold buried. Or some way for they could make some money to do something. Do they think the world runs on what? Seawater? Plenty of seawater out there. How come you're not out there doing stuff?
Seawater doesn't have any value, Space Manny.
Oh? Our planet, it's gold. So the whole idea is that this kind of babbling boobage talk that's written down there, and I'm just shocked how many people are jumping on this book as such a profound work. Now, it's an interesting little work, and it's always fascinating to think about, well, there's other people, and they look like this, and they do that, and that's how they live. Okay. I don't know. But people are fascinated by this. I've read some comments on YouTube. That's just the most profound book I've read. It's so beautiful. But if you look at the words from the prophecy people, they're very confused as well. They're both sexes. They want to look like girls, but they want to condemn everybody else. They think homosexuality is bad, and of course abortion. All the stuff that a Catholic Frenchman would ask somebody. So the whole idea is that this is all a bunch of nonsense that doesn't help anybody. If you're not going to give somebody tools to do something with, then why do you bother want to tell them, period? They have no answers. They're not telling us, well, you can purify your water by doing this simple process. And there's many things that they could tell us to do that could be done by a primitive like the information I got, which you can take basic earth tools, earth products around, and make something out of it that's awesome. None of it. So don't believe any of it. Don't fall into the trap of these basically negative entities that want to do it. You know, if you're a well-meaning person, well, that's wonderful. But if you're going to bang the drum of something that has no value to it whatsoever and try and tell people this has value for whatever the reason of it on a spiritual path is, that's not going to help anybody. Living in a fake illusion is disabling. It's not empowering. Living in a lie is disabling. It's not empowering. If you don't know what's going on, you're not going to be able to handle it. And ultimately, that's going to cause tragedy in your life and the entire society you live in. Until next time.